the radio voice of the Mavs. Chuck Cooperstein is with us. Hey, Chuck, what's cooking? How you doing?
Just like everybody else, 3 minutes into the soccer game.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll all watch along together, but talk a little hoops while we're doing it. Hey, the Golden State Warriors fan base spent a long time, until maybe a week ago, trying to figure out why the slow start. What's going on with this team? If they pick up the standings and look at the Mavs at 9 and 10, we'll send the same question out your way. What's going on with the Mavs so far?
They are very, 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 very Luka-centric. And they've not been able to find a way to take some of the heat off of him. The loss of Jalen Brunson in free agency and the lack of a replacement for him, the Mavericks thought they could get away with it on some level, and that has proven to not be the case. Their three-point shooting comes and goes. And I realize that's true pretty much for everybody, but when you take as many threes as the Mavericks do, and you are as streaky as they are, and you have all these guys that have been really brought to the team to surround Luka and force teams to play Luka with two, and then if Luka gives up the ball, they have open shots, they're supposed to make those shots. Well, those shots aren't being made. And right now it looks a lot like how the beginning of last season looked. The Mavericks were 2 games under 500 going into New Year's Eve, and then they went 36-12 the rest of the way. I mean, I don't know what's in store here, if there's a repeat in the offing, but suffice to say, until they either start making threes or start taking fewer threes and taking more twos, where right now they take the fewest 2-point shots of any team in the NBA, and they have the 4th best 2-point percentage in the NBA, and Luka's shooting over 60% on his twos. Unless that happens, they've got problems that may not be easily solved.
One of the big issues that the Warriors have had has been with the second unit, and I look at the Dallas Mavericks, and it looks like that's where, aside from the Luka minutes, that's where Dallas has been able to make its hay. What's the key for the Mavericks in terms of their bench productivity?
Well, I don't know that their bench has necessarily been that productive. I mean, Christian Wood obviously can score. I mean, he's got 8 20-point games this year off the bench. Only Benedict Mathurin in Indiana has more. But, Tim Hardaway has not played well. Josh Green has been, very, very inconsistent. Maxi Kleber is not shooting the ball the way he shot it in the playoffs last year, and he just came back from injury a little bit ago. They spent a lot. They spent their taxpayer exception on JaVale McGee, trying to give them a little more rim protection. And JaVale McGee does not look like the JaVale McGee who won a couple of championships for the Warriors, or even the one that played and was a starter for the Lakers and Jason Kidd in 2020. Their bench really hasn't been very productive at all, which is problematic. Which is why Kemba Walker's been signed, and they hope that at least for the 15 or 20 minutes that he's able to play, that he can give them a more consistent boost off of the bench, not to mention to be able to handle the ball so that Luka doesn't have to have this absurd usage rate that could have him wiped out by Christmas.
Chuck Cooperstein, the radio voice of the Mavs, with us here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Chuck, it was interesting watching Jason Kidd speak in the playoffs last year. We almost had a tongue-in-cheek conversation or two about it. He almost sounded like, we're just happy to be here. Like a lot of his interviews were like, we're here to learn. And it felt like maybe reverse psychology. But now looking back on it, what are your thoughts? Like, what did the Mavs learn from that series?
I mean, they learned that Golden State was better. That's what they learned. Learned that that you got to play better defense than what they played, because they didn't play very much defense in that series at all. Golden State cooked them, especially, they made Kevon Looney into a star, which he's not, but he's a good player, but they made him literally into a star. I don't know that necessarily anything was learned other than the fact that you got to be there. You got to be on that stage. You got to be able to perform on that stage. And let's face it, if the Mavericks do what they were supposed to do and hold a 19-point lead in Game 2, and that series is tied to game apiece, that series probably looks a little bit different. But that allowed, I think, the Warriors to really get the full feel for themselves as to their ability to win the series. And then, of course, in Game 3, Wiggins was incredible. That's one of the best games I've ever seen Andrew Wiggins play. Maybe the best game I've ever seen him play. But I mean, I think it was just a matter of being there and being on that stage and trying to perform on that stage. Now, they lost a pretty significant part from that grouping in Brunson that has not been replaced. And so right now they're not nearly as good. They pretty much, rolled it back with the same grouping, save for Christian Wood. And, Christian Wood has never played an important game in his life. So, it all remains to be seen.
And you look at the landscape in the Western Conference, is there a sense inside the Mavericks organization that, there's still plenty of room and plenty of chances for Dallas to move up? Because it seems like it's a pretty well-packed Western Conference. Where is this organization coming off of the disappointment of last year's Western Conference Finals?
I mean, they obviously think they're a very good team. And as long as they have Luka, there's a certain floor that they will always have, and it's how everybody else plays around him. I mean, they're sitting in 11th right now, but they haven't lost any confidence in their ability to ultimately be, a top 3 or 4 seed again, especially with everything being as packed as it is. I mean, you're one good winning streak from moving up significantly, or one long losing streak, as the Mavericks are on right now, from falling down significantly. That's kind of the way it is right now. It's almost amazing, frankly. The Mavericks have never had longer than a 6-game winning streak since their championship season. I mean, it's in 2011. It's crazy. But they need something like that at some point in order to make up for a lot of the mishaps here in the first month of the year, which obviously has included, blowing any number of big leads and losing, and also losing to teams that were not playing at anywhere near full strength when they pretty much were at full strength. And, those are games that they're going to have to, they're going to look back on unless they reel off something really big here at some point during the year. They're going to look back on it and say, that this just killed us. It just did not give us the positioning that we wanted or required in order for us to make the run that we ultimately believe that we should be able to make.
Chuck, give us the primer on tonight. The Warriors have played a good portion of the season looking mostly like themselves at home, but being kind of dreadful on the road. All teams are better at home, I get that, but give us the primer for tonight in terms of what you expect from the Mavs being in their home building.
Well, the Mavericks are 8-3 at home. One of those losses came to Houston on the second night of a back-to-back when Luka didn't play, but it was a pretty dreadful performance, to say the least. They only scored 92 points that night. I know the Warriors are playing much, much better. They're looking much more like themselves. Splash Brothers are splashing. They're actually guarding people right now, which they've not done or did not do in the first 11 games of the year. I think that, for the Mavericks to win, the Mavericks will, number one, have to drive the ball. They will have to do what Golden State has done all year and force Golden State to foul. Golden State has a hard time defending without fouling. They foul more than any other team in the league. They give up more free throws than any other team in the league. That's all well and good for the Mavericks, except for the Mavericks are a bad free throw shooting team. And Luka is in a terrible spot right now as far as his free throws. He's so streaky. In his last 4 games, he's shooting 56% from the foul line on 36 attempts, 37 attempts, which is it's unacceptable. But that's one thing that they could make up for what figures to be Golden State's edge in 3-point shooting with getting to the foul line a ton, because and the Warriors don't get to the foul line at all. So that's one way that it happens. And another way, and we've known this to be the case with the Warriors for years, is yes, their offense is very pretty to watch, but their offense also ultimately results in a lot of turnovers. I mean, only Houston turns over the ball more than they do. The Mavericks have been much, much better this year in not only forcing turnovers, but scoring off of turnovers. But you've got to be able to score off of those turnovers that you force. Those are the 2 ways I think the Mavericks win the game tonight. I can't see them out shooting Golden State, out field goal percentaging them. I can't see that happening. I'm seeing it, just sort of on a volume of keeping their own turnovers down, getting fouled, getting to the line, making free throws, and then forcing Golden State into mistakes that will offset what figures to be a pretty good shooting game by them.
Luka, a handful to guard. It'll be Wiggins and Draymond taking on the most of the burden, maybe a little bit of Clay as well. What do the Mavericks do to try to guard Stephen Curry?
What does anybody do? I mean, he's an impossible cover. I mean, the thing about Curry that is just so great, and I think it's just so unappreciated, is he is constantly moving. Nobody runs more than he runs. It's not just him handling the ball; it's him coming off all those screens and can do this for 20 seconds in the shot clock. It's impossible to stay with him. I mean, the Mavericks do a lot of switching, and I think that's pretty much been their standard operating procedure. They had some success with it last year. Certainly in the regular season they did. One fourth quarter of the game in Dallas, the last game of the season in the series, Curry didn't score. In fact, didn't take a shot in the fourth quarter. Another game, the other game the Mavericks won here back in early January, Curry only scored 14 points, and he was in the midst of a really serious shooting slump at that point. He's not in a shooting slump right now. He looks like Curry. And if he looks like Curry, then he's very, very difficult, because no matter how much you think you have him covered, where you think you are on the floor, he's open. The bottom line is he's open. It's like Jerry Rice. Okay, Jerry Rice might have been double covered. Jerry Rice was always open, and that's the case with Curry. You've got to stay with him. A step over the midcourt line is not too early to get up into him and try to make his life difficult.
Chuck, great to have you on a game day. Have a great call, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
All right.